We are back and so excited to be here with all of you this afternoon. Joe and I have had 3 presentations today, and we said we saved the best for last. So, right, Joe? I am the Associate Director of Development at the Guide Dog Foundation and America's Vetdogs, and I'm joined today by Joe Worley and Tom Frezza, and our guest star, Galaxy, the service dog. So I'm just going to give you a little background about how America's Vetdogs began. It began with the fellow you're seeing on the screen. His name is Vito Vero, and he was the first recipient of a guide dog from the Guide Dog Foundation going back 75 years. And he actually did serve our country. He was a veteran who lost his vision as a result of serving, and over his lifetime received several dogs from our school. And Guide Dog Foundation is excited that this is actually our 75th year celebration.
We look so young.
So about America's Vetdogs, we are a national nonprofit organization. We're based in Smithtown, New York. We provide veterans of all eras with service dogs. We breed, raise, and train our puppies. We instruct on their use, and we provide a lifetime of aftercare support free of charge for the team of both active handler and dog. And through our programs, we've probably given hundreds of service dogs to veterans over the years. We started in 2003 under the Guide Dog Foundation name, and in 2006, America's Vetdogs became its own nonprofit. So we house 2 nonprofits here in Smithtown, New York, helping civilians with visual disabilities and veterans and first responders with disabilities also other than blindness, such as loss of limb, traumatic brain injury, seizure disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, you name it. And so our story always begins with puppies, and who doesn't want to talk about puppies? That's what we do. We're breeding puppies, and we're breeding labs and Goldens, and we have Poodles for those that have allergies on the Guide Dog Foundation side. And we also have mixes of both labs and Goldens. They're a lab Golden cross mix. And so we breed them, and at about 8 weeks, we provide them over to a volunteer puppy raiser. And the volunteer puppy raiser is responsible to teach them all the basic needs, skills, commands that are needed into shaping these puppies into future assistance dogs. And basically, they bring these dogs everywhere, you name it, to the grocery store, to the soccer fields, to the movie theaters. The objective here is not to leave these puppies home. They need to be socialized. So they go out and about, and they learn lots of new things each and every day. And then when they're about 14, 15, 16 months of age, they come back to our campus in Smithtown, New York. And I refer to that as like a children leaving for college. They go to college and they work with our trainers anywhere from as little as 2 months up to 6 months before they're placed with somebody who has applied to our program. So it does come at a cost. It's all free of charge to our veterans. We don't expect them to give us any money to receive these dogs. They have done so much for us by serving our country. But we do rely on contributions from individual donors, foundations, corporations, service clubs. All of this is vital for us, and we really couldn't do it without these sort of things. It would be wrong of me if I didn't tell all of you that, we were the organization selected to provide President George H.W. Bush with our celebrity dog, Sully H.W. Bush. And, we were very excited about that opportunity because there was lots of other organizations around the country that do similar work as America's Vetdogs, but the president chose America's Vetdogs because he believed that we had what he needed. And it was his wish that, if he should pass, that Sully would continue to do work. And so we were fortunate to have a very good relationship with Walter Reed Military Medical Center in Bethesda, Maryland. And so Sully continues to work each and every day. And instead of just helping one veteran, is helping many veterans on a daily basis, which is a wonderful, beautiful thing. In these images, you're seeing one image, of course, of George H.W. with Sully H.W., but also President Clinton. And also there's a picture of the real Sully with the statue of Sully that is in the Presidential Library in Texas. And we're fortunate that we have a replica of this Sully statue placed on our campus in New York. And so I tell everyone, you know, if you're ever planning a visit to New York, we would love for you to come and see our statue of Sully. So it is my pleasure to make sure that all of you are aware that the Colonial Dames named a puppy, and this puppy is named Dame. So please welcome Dame. And isn't she a cutie? They all are cute. We love them all, but Dame happens to be especially cute right here. So what's interesting about Dame is actually living in prison. So that's right, prison. So inmates are screened for the opportunity to do the puppy raising behind prison program walls Monday through Friday. And believe it or not, this is a blessing because it's giving this inmate, teaching them new skills. And it's great for Dame because she's getting round-the-clock care and she's learning all the time. And so we find that the puppies that are being raised in prison really do remarkable work. And when they come out of prison, they're a little bit advanced, they say. So they say they don't need as much training, you know, as other puppies. So it's a wonderful thing. So Dame is in prison throughout the work week, and then on the weekends, she goes and lives with a volunteer puppy raiser. So she's getting outside prison program walls exposure, which is very good for her. And she's getting to go to the restaurants and soccer games and such. So I hope you're all excited that you get to learn more about how Dame's doing throughout her training process. And I'm excited to welcome Thomas here today. And Thomas is here with the puppy that he's currently raising, which is named Shay. So Tom Frezza is a public affairs specialist for the Naval History and Heritage Command, and he happens to also be a volunteer puppy raiser for America's Vetdogs and the Guide Dog Foundation. He's raising Shay, and Shay is actually 10 months and is learning a PTSD curriculum. They live together outside of DC, also with Tom's wife and 2 other dogs. So thanks for joining us today, Tom. How are you guys doing?
Not too bad. Shay has had an eventful day. We actually went into work at the Washington Navy Yard and did some things, and then came back home to get ready for this. So
okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
So, you know, I know that this is the second puppy that you've raised for the foundation, and I believe that the first puppy you raised was more on a guide dog track. So I guess what I want to know is, you know, do you find it harder to be teaching Shay a PTSD curriculum?
It's, I wouldn't say harder, it's a little bit more challenging. With the guide curriculum, it's more about exposing them to a lot more different environments that they could be exposed to. With PTSD curriculum, it's that, and on top of it, you're also teaching them different skills on how to alert to different situations. Also how to, you know, shut cabinets, how to act as a blocker for the veteran or first responder. So that there's a lot more different steps that go into raising the puppy.
Is it a family affair? Like, I know that Shay happens to be with you and goes to work with you every day, but, you know, does your wife take part in this volunteer role as well?
She does a little bit, but I am the primary raiser. But there are a lot of families with the raising group down here in DC that it's a whole family affair. So with my wife's work schedule, she's not able to because she's a school teacher, but I'm able to because of my job.
Okay. Okay, fantastic. So maybe you can explain, you know, when you signed on to be a volunteer with the Guide Dog Foundation, you know, did they explain like what the process would be and what are you expected to do as for becoming a volunteer?
Yeah, so they were very clear and very upfront from the beginning that the goal of the puppy raiser volunteer is to raise the puppy and make sure that they not only are great within the household, so house manners and everything, but that they're great in the general public, and that, you know, you go into this knowing it's not your dog, you're training them for a mission. And that's what really drove me to America's Vetdogs and the Guide Dog Foundation, that they were very mission driven with these dogs. And again, you go into this knowing that you're getting a tiny puppy at 8 to 9 weeks old, and they're going to be with you 24/7 for a little over a year. And you're basically, you know, putting all of your love into guys just like this and girls just like this, and they're going out to help somebody.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Did you get to meet any recipients of the first dog that you raised? How did that work out?
So the first dog I raised, Sparky, he passed all of his guide certification, but sadly was not placed as a guide dog. He actually went to scent detection school and is now working at the Louisville airport as a scent detection dog. So I have not been able to meet his new handler, but, you know, I trained him for one mission, but he's doing another. So I see it as a win.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, listen, we always say that there are lots of careers for our dogs at the Guide Dog Foundation and America's Vetdogs. And so, you know, although they can't all be guide or service dogs, I think the career that your dog was given is a valued one. And so that's a wonderful, you did a really great thing there.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. So I encourage everyone who's listening in today, if you have any questions, feel free to type it into the chat, because we can certainly take questions more towards the end. But as you think of them, please type them in. That would be wonderful. So Tom, thank you so much for all you do. The truth is, you know, we couldn't do what we do without volunteers, that we rely on volunteers like you to do the work that you're doing. And we are blessed to have over 1,600 volunteers that help us, more throughout the East Coast, to be honest. But we're always looking. We're always looking for puppy raisers and really trying to build them, and especially in the communities where you are. I know you're like in the DC area, and we have a nice, strong presence in Maryland, Northern Virginia, and in DC. So thank you so much for all you do. But please stick with us in case anybody has questions for you.
Will do.
And without further ado, I'm so excited to introduce Mr. Joseph Worley and his service dog Galaxy. And all of you can see Galaxy up on the screen. Joe is a two-time graduate of our program. He's a Navy corpsman who lost his left leg above the knee. He was on the first class at America's Vetdogs back in 2008, where he received his service dog Benjamin. And he came back to our school in 2017, where he received his new service dog, Galaxy. So Joe, I'm going to stop sharing my PowerPoint because I want everybody to see you. But if you can, just take a few minutes and, you know, maybe share your story with everyone who's on. And then I might interject at some point and ask you some questions along the way.
Yeah, by all means. I think Galaxy's jealous because Shay's getting fed. He had his head up watching a minute ago. First of all, your time is so important to me, and I appreciate, I'm humbled to be able to be here and take something so objectively awful that's happened to me and turn it into something amazing, like being able to spend time with you and share with you. I went into the Navy because I thought it would be slightly safer. Um, I had my brother-in-law went into the Air Force, and my one of my best friends go into the Army. So we kind of all went in at the same time and just split in all different directions. And I ended up with the Marines. I went over to Fallujah, Iraq, with 2-1 Marines in 2004. My wife was 5 months pregnant. Perfect time for me to skip town, and per standard military procedure, and ended up having a pretty rough time over there in 2004 in Fallujah. We ended up living in the city for a little under 8 weeks. And on Labor Day of 2004, a suicide bomber self-detonated beside a 7-ton and killed much of my second squad. And so here I am, having gone through something this awful. And 11 days after that, we're just getting back out. We've got about 2 weeks left in the deployment, and the first vehicle in our convoy gets hit with an IED. So I jump out and go running up to try to help, because as a corpsman, your job is to take care of Marines. We're medics. And so I ran up there to try to help, and I got hit as well on foot with an IED. I remember everything. I remember going up in the air. I remember hitting the ground. I remember thinking that there was no way I was going to live. I'm not pessimistic. Let me be clear. Anybody who knows me, I am optimistic to a fault. My mom used to always tell me only an idiot's happy all the time, and then she would introduce me as an idiot. And so I'm just one of those people that logically I didn't know how I would survive something like that. For instance, that morning I chose eating, and I will always do this consistently, but I chose eating over getting my gear perfect. So I actually had my 9mm Beretta on my hip instead of on my chest. That was out of an entire 7-month deployment that happened maybe 3 or 4 days. And my 9mm was busted into 5 pieces. And so having that on my hip saved my life. I get hit. I'm able to roll over and put a tourniquet on. I shot myself up with morphine, which I thought was going to be way more fun than it was. It wasn't fun at all. I ended up barely making it back all the way to Baghdad and to Balad to Longstuhl, all the way over to Bethesda, Maryland, and spent some time at Bethesda. I ended up having over 3 dozen surgeries. I had my surgeries at Bethesda and all my physical therapy over at Walter Reed. I had a brand new 3-month-old daughter that I had never even met. And I remember sitting in the hospital before I got to see her for the first time, soaking my hands, trying to get my hands clean. And I just remember thinking that I needed to find a way, because I felt like my hands would never be clean enough to take everything I've been through and everything that I am now and make those work together. And I think that little conversation I had with myself there really helped me sort of get off on the right foot of this, which is good because my right foot's the only one I have left. So I ended up being able to sort of grow with my family there, and I had an amazing support system. I had a 3-month-old daughter so my life, as hard as everything was, I had what I needed to succeed. It's still easily the hardest thing I've ever been through in my entire life. Having said that, I knew I needed help, even with all the amazing support system I had. And, we talked about Sully being at Walter Reed now. I love that dog. He's amazing. He might possibly be the most famous dog in the world right now. But I ended up making contact with Harvey, as an occupational therapist over at Walter Reed. I think he's still there. And he had a facility dog from America's Vetdogs named Deuce, which was a chocolate lab. Fantastic name for a chocolate lab if you're immature like I am. And I fell in love. And to be able to see this dog transition from work to play, it was very military-esque. I loved being able to see the dog go from just walking around talking to everybody, which was his job. He's an ambassador, to he called Deuce. He said, "Deuce, come," and the dog's entire demeanor changed. And he started running the dog through tasks, having him go under chairs to retrieve objects. And, at this point, I was totally mind blown. I grew up watching like Benji and Lassie. So, this was just seeing it in front of my face like this was incredible. I put application in, and I was invited to the first on-campus class in 2008. I met some amazing people in class and both at the facility, and I absolutely fell in love.
What's a typical day like at the America's Vetdogs campus?
Well, first of all, you get to eat. Well, actually, technically that's second, and I like eating. So actually, it's actually way more fast paced than I thought it was going to be. I'll be honest, and I loved that. I didn't realize I'd missed it. You go on a lot of these veteran trips, and they're pretty much let you pace yourself. But with this, in a weird sort of way, it was almost like doggy boot camp. And leave it. Thank you, sir. And and so you wake up in the morning, you take the dog out for a break, and then you go straight to breakfast, and then you learn for a few hours, and then you go out and do practical application, and then you go back and learn and you do practical application, and of course they're feeding you periodically through all this, which is why I stayed. And they are also taking you out trips and allowing you to do the things they're teaching you to do. And the whole time you're building a rapport with the instructors and with the other people there. It's actually a lot of fun.
Fantastic. So we're getting some questions regarding breeds. So let's talk breeds right now. What is Galaxy?
Galaxy is a dog. You're gonna kick me. I'm just joking. No, he is a yellow lab. And Benjamin was a golden retriever, a big old fluffy boy.
And Tom, if you could just tell us again, Shay.
So Shay is a lab golden mix. I forget the percentage, but it's he's a mix.
3/4 something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Okay, fantastic. So just to let everybody know, again, we have pure labs, we have goldens like Joe had Benjamin, and then we do the lab golden cross mix. And then we have poodles, and I actually recently adopted a poodle. I always wanted one. I have a family history of those that have allergies, so I was always looking for a poodle, and we don't breed too many of them. And obviously they're typically out and about, with our guide dog users. But for some reason, Coda is the dog that I took home. She's a squirrel chaser and she's easily distracted. So therefore she could not be a guide dog. So we have a nice balance with us today. Coda's actually sleeping behind me. And then also, the relationship between the Guide Dog Foundation and America's Vetdogs, it's two separate nonprofits housed out of the same campus. Staff, we represent both the Guide Dog Foundation and America's Vetdogs. The beauty in this, although it is two separate nonprofits, is that it does give the opportunity for multiple careers. So we do have our dogs that are learning a guide dog curriculum. We have our dogs, like Dane, that are learning a service dog curriculum, or in Tom's case, Shay is learning a PTSD specific curriculum. But I'm not gonna lie. I mean, these dogs come back to our campus at 15, 16 months of age, and sometimes they're assessed and evaluated, and we realize they're not going to be a great guide dog, so therefore maybe they'll be an okay service dog, or vice versa. So there's lots of different career opportunities, and believe it or not, the best career that we have is a breeder. And why is because the breeder dogs have Harvard-like educations, and we need to duplicate them to have other Harvard-like dogs. So if you're a breeder, you're a breeder, and you're a breeder for the time that you're working, and then you end up retiring into your breeder caretaker's home, which is the home you've lived in pretty much your whole life. So that's that. So Joe, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about class. I'm assuming that when you attended class on campus that, you weren't the only serviceman, woman that was in the Navy, but who, did you have other maybe veterans of different eras, or, different branches? Was that what it was like? Was it all men, women? You tell us.
We had everything. I mean, just about every mix you could imagine. I think they did that on purpose to have an eclectic mix in the group, because we definitely had older veterans. We had Vietnam, and we had men, women. We had people. And then my second class, we had I believe a firefighter. who was a veteran as well too, but was an active firefighter. And so, going through the class the first time, I thought I knew what I needed to know. And as I've told you before, I was humbled and absolutely wrong. I didn't want to take 2 weeks off of work and go back through the class. I was dead wrong. It had grown so much from 2008 to 2017 that I learned more in that class than I've known the whole time beforehand. I mean, the program has just grown and grown, and
Were you
it's
scared that you were
incredible.
going to spend too many hours and be exhausted and work too hard when you came back to the school?
I was afraid that I was going to try to do both at the same time. And that was my thing. But they actually lifted my workload and made sure that people were there to help out. And I was able to split my class in two because I actually had a national convention to go to. And so I ended up having to do the last 5 days of class at a separate time. And so that was, they were very accommodating with me. And and like I've told you before, it's just as soon as I got Benjamin and got to see not only what he did for me physically, because he was trained as walking and mobility bracing, which allowed me to get in and out of the floor. Galaxy's trained to open handicap doors. He can pull me in my wheelchair, which is something I never thought I would use until I was trying to reschedule a flight out of Hartsfield Airport. And if you've ever been in that airport, it's a hot mess. And so it's just huge. And it's the only reason I made my flight. And so along that vein, I realized that not only had I grown closer to the program, the program had grown so much more.
So, we also have questions about how long it actually takes to raise and train a dog. And so maybe Joe, if you want to, I know you know this as well, perhaps you can share a little bit of information on that.
Yeah, well, like Tom said, they have them for about a year, and but in that first part, they just get to be puppies. The first couple of weeks of life, they just get to be puppies, and you get to see their little personalities, and they take pictures of the litters and share them everywhere, and it's just the most adorable thing to follow. And but once they get outside of that puppy stage, they go to work and they love it. These dogs love what they do, and so that's really incredible because there's a period between when they're just puppies for like 8 weeks to when they go to the raisers, and then they end up actually staying either in the prison program or like in Tom's case, the dogs go to the trainers around a year old to about 15 months, somewhere around there, and then that's when they get their heavy duty specific training that's dedicated towards one individual.
Fantastic. So what I want to get into now is kind of really important, which is, and I think you started to get into this a little bit, but from what I hear when I speak to our graduates, it just not only do these dogs make a huge difference in their lives, but it seems to make such a huge impact on their families. And I know you have a big family. So what I'd like to know is, how has Benjamin and now Galaxy, how has it brought your family network back together?
This is a heavy question. This is a serious question because this was something that I didn't realize that when I got hurt, I felt like, what kind of dad can I be? I can't run around and play with my kids. I went from being this person that was who everybody came to for help, and then all of a sudden I've got a banged up right leg and a above knee prosthetic on the left side. And I'll never forget, there was a couple of things that made my family sort of come together along with the idea. One of those was my wife and I were getting ready to go to church, I believe it was, and my wife dropped her phone and it bounced under the car. And I just sort of half jokingly said, Benjamin, bring. And he climbed under the car. I mean, the car was off, of course, grabbed her phone. And when he started backing out, his tail was just doing that because he knew he'd just done something pretty cool. And I think that's when my wife really fell in love with Benji. I think it's, the only big dog she's ever loved that way. And then for me personally, I was in the backyard. I was sitting on the porch. I was mostly wheelchair bound at the time. When I first got Benjamin, I had really let myself go. I was about 270 pounds, and I couldn't get around. I couldn't walk, especially on uneven ground like our backyard. And I'll never forget, he was running around playing with my kids, and he was so gentle because Abby was, I think, 4 at the time, and Izzy was just a tiny little thing. And he was so gentle, and he would run around and hide behind the playhouse, and then when they'd see him, he'd run off, and then he would sort of like chase them but never quite catch them. It was like he had a mind for this sort of thing. He was like the nanny dog from Peter Pan. And I just saw that he was doing something I couldn't do, and I didn't feel like he was taking my place. I felt like he was doing that as an extension of me, and that's emotional for me, because that was one of the things that I felt like I was not able to do for my kids, and he was there to do that. They always felt safe in the backyard with him back there, and he just would fall asleep in the sand and have to shake off where he came in. He liked being out there with the kids.
So I know that, you had such a bond with Benjamin, and I know that because you and I have traveled together to conventions, and that was when you had Benjamin.
Yeah.
So I think, one of the questions is what happens to the dogs when they retire? And I think, you can answer that probably best because you ended up, finally agreeing to the fact that Benjamin was getting up in age.
Yeah.
You're still a young guy, and you still had a lot of work to do, and you needed maybe a dog that was going to be able to keep up with your needs. So you ended up, what'd you do?
As I got better, Benjamin started aging, and around the time he hit 8 or 9 years old, I was in the best shape of my life, and it was because I had the support that I needed. My wife was amazing the whole time, obviously, but she's 110 pounds, and Benjamin was trained to help me out of the floor. So it was like, for me, it was that push I needed to start moving again. And like you said, I was really reluctant. I didn't want to, but Benji was getting, he was 10 years old. He's a tank. I mean, had never even had a wet nose that he didn't lick. And, and so he just never got sick or anything, but he did slow down. And so I finally got a call, and they're like, listen, I've got the perfect dog for you. I'm hiding him in my office, and somebody's going to get him this weekend if I don't earmark him for you. You've got to get your application finished up. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. And so I finally came in and came in for my second class, to get Galaxy. But a retired dog, Benjamin had a little time adjusting because I would ask Galaxy to do things, and Benjamin wanted to do those things because, like I said, he loves working. So I would give Benjamin little tasks to do just to make him feel like he was still doing stuff. And eventually he got it. I'd get ready to go somewhere, and, he'd come say bye and then go lay back down. And he wasn't sad. He had my daughters loving on him the whole time and everything. But
I don't have a service dog, but I can sort of relate to you because I have a 13-year-old doodle. And now I have Coda, who's 2. And Coda, she's walking with me more, coming out a lot more. And it's a little sad, but they're getting up in age, and it is hard to keep up. And I'm assuming, that you received Galaxy like before the age of 2, like was it around 2 years old?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because Benjamin was close to 2. I think he was right at 2. I think he might have been like 23 months or something, but because Galaxy went through the prison program and had people that were able to give him all that training and attention all at once, instead of us who have jobs and things like that, I think he was 17 months, 18 months old. And
and that's common, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot more dogs are placed around that age now. It's a few months before the age of 2. Fantastic. So if you could just go, and I think you mentioned this, but some of the folks watching wanted to know like all the tasks. I guess you can't say every task, but all the tasks that Galaxy does for you. And I know he's sleepy, but is there anything he can show on camera?
Yeah. Galaxy, stand. Come here.
Okay.
Rest. So that's my favorite command, that where he lays his head in my lap and just looks up at me. Sit.
He doesn't want to rest right now, Joe.
No, he doesn't. Bring. Good boy. Oh my goodness, you're so handsome. How do you do it?
That's fantastic. Yeah. Now, was he trained to turn on and off light switches or open doors?
Yes, he can. He can shut doors and he can pull doors open. And he can hit the button for handicap doors. He has a brace command, which will allow me to stand up holding on to him. And also to get into the floor as needed. Like I mentioned, when I'm in my wheelchair, he has a certain vest that he can wear that has a handle on it, and he'll actually pull me as he's walking. And he keeps looking back. He's like, "Is that good enough? Is that good enough? You're a big boy." Galaxy down.
So just going back to the questions regarding dogs, retiring, Joe and I have worked at the organization where we're starting. Joe is one of them, but where, many veterans, their dogs have aged out. They find that they still need support. They reapply. They're coming back for now a second service dog. The truth is that not everybody who got a first service dog reapplies for a second service dog. And the reason for that is maybe they've gotten so much better, they don't feel that they need it any longer. So that happens.
I thought that I was that way. I really did, because the task that Benjamin was trained for was a different Joe Worley than who he helped me become. And so I was wrong, of course, but I was, I wanted another dog, and it was kind of part of what I do as my job. And I knew I could still use the help. I was wrong. Like I said, the new tasks and things like that really make a difference. And I didn't realize how much the program had grown. And so I imagine that some people do feel like they've grown from the system to a point, because the goal is obviously to enrich your life, to improve you. And so for me, like I said, I ended up losing like 70 pounds and being able to take care of myself. And so if those were my only goals, then Benjamin helped me get there. But for me personally, I'm so glad I went back to the program.
On the opposite side, though, as veterans are aging, they might have been fine their whole life. They might now have a disability. They're up in age, Vietnam veteran. And, they feel like they too can benefit from having a service dog of their own. I've seen that as well. And it's, this is very common. A lot of the Vietnam veterans, it takes quite a bit of talking to them, because they just don't feel that they are worthy to receive these service dogs. And
they feel
guilty. Can greatly benefit from these dogs. It really can change their life.
And people using the program as a benefit to us. I mean, when we see a need, having a waiting list is awful, because we want to serve everyone, but also it reminds us that what we're doing is important. There's people that are relying and waiting on us, whose lives can be drastically changed and improved, and their ability to function as more normal lives is contingent sometimes on things like this.
Yeah. Going back to Shay, Tom, we have some questions. So Shay is 10 months. I'm assuming you had Shay since Shay was 8 weeks. I'm thinking. Yeah. Okay. So, I know you're teaching the basic commands again, the sit, stay, all of that, but
make me a grilled cheese.
That no. But, talk about what our advisors are telling you to teach Shay from your side.
There's the basics, which are the household manners. And some of the others are more specific for the PTSD curriculum. It's like the blocking movements. So that one of them is center, where Shay kind of comes in front of you and uses his body as like a barrier between the veteran and whatever's in front. The other one is behind, where he tucks in behind you. And it's actually really cute, because he ends up kind of glancing around my leg to see what's going on in front and everything too. So there's a lot of different positions that he's learning, not only to do the things on your left-hand side, but also on the right-hand side as well. So that's a lot of what we're doing. Also the pushing and alerting as well. It's a lot of fun to teach him to shut drawers and
I'm sure.
Yeah, it's always great to leave a drawer open and just tell him, go shut it, and he'll run over and shut it for you. It's great.
Aw, that's fantastic. I saw somebody earlier wanted to know, like, what do you feed him? Talk about the food. What is Shay eating these days?
So Shay is eating adult food, and that's one of the training things that we do too. Is we don't really have specific training treats in our pouches. It's their regular kibble that I think there's 4 different brands that are approved, and I use his kibble as his training treats, and he's none the wiser. And he is extremely food motivated.
Yeah,
Extremely food motivated.
I am too, to be fair.
Thanks, Joe. Haha. But the truth is that really all of the dogs, other than poodles, my poodles are not food motivated, but all the others that we have are very much food motivated. Yeah. Very much. I mean, I'm sure your first dog, Tom, was just as food motivated, no?
Yes, he was to a degree, but he was also extremely gentle with taking treats, and he was a lab golden mix too. But he was like feeding a cloud. This guy, on the other hand, we've worked with him a lot to let me keep all of my fingers, as you can see.
Other questions we have, and I guess this is really a question for both of you, and I'm going to answer it too. You know, do the dogs adjust quickly to their homes? Is there a transition? You know, the truth is that these dogs, they do adapt, you know, rather quickly to change. You know, I think I read somewhere that dogs, it tends to take them all a few weeks before they're like fully, you know, used to the new environment. But, you know, the truth is especially these dogs that are food motivated, they love the hand that feeds them. So if you keep feeding them and loving on them, they'll be happy in your home, no problem. Tom, would you agree with what I'm saying, or?
100%. Shay definitely. Hi, buddy. Shay definitely jumped in with all 4 feet, and there was no looking back. He fit in extremely easily. Our other 2 dogs took a little bit of exception to it because he is a bit of a pistol. Definitely, even at 8 weeks, was a huge ball of energy. And one of our dogs is a 12-year-old lab who just was over it within the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, I know how that. I understand.
You would see Jay coming and just leave the room.
Aw.
but
Joe,
they're all good now.
What's your experience with bringing the dogs into your home?
I think people respond to love. It's just simple as that. People and dogs respond to love, and they know. You know, I think you hear those love stories where a dog gets saved from the pound or something like that, and people are like, that dog knows that its life was saved in some way. And I think that's true. I think, you know, they get home, and between, you know, me and my daughters and then eventually my wife, the dogs, you know, they blend right in, you know, and that's, I don't think that there was much of a transition issue at all. I think they're happy to be in a family and to be able to have a task-oriented life.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. As far as the costs that go, so, you know, America's Vetdogs assumes all the cost of everything while Shay is with Tom, other than the food. So Tom is providing food to Shay. That's what he signed on for. But when Shay, you know, needs to go to the vet, you know, we will take on those costs. And I have to say this, that, you know, these dogs, once they're placed with the Joes of the world, with our veterans, you know, it is a responsibility for the veterans. So they need to know ahead of time. And I think that that's a part of them coming to our class, staying with us on our campus. I didn't say this earlier, 10 days. They're provided with their lodging, their food and beverage, and the training needed, because the dogs know what to do at this point. But you know, the humans are learning.
Our thick heads that got to learn then.
Right, exactly. So, you know, they need to fully understand that they're going to take this dog and have to feed them, have to, you know, busy them. Am I allowed to say that? That's the command to go busy. All of this is important. And then they do take on, initially at least, this ability to have to cover the veterinary care. Now, I know that the veterans work with the VAs for the dogs to become dogs of record. Maybe you want to talk about that,
Yeah.
Joe, real
So
quick.
there's actually a thing called dog of record. I think they're shifting the name now. It's some sort of like insurance thing. I forget what it is called, but initially it was called dog of record. And so basically the prosthetics department of the VA doesn't just deal with prosthetics like my metal leg. They also deal with things that help joint support. So if you've got a fused ankle or something like that, you have an exo device of some sort to help support that ankle, or a knee brace or a cane. Prosthetics and occupational therapy sort of work together for that, but prosthetics generally pays for those things. So once the dog is a legitimized service dog, we're ADI certified, they can be put in as dog of record. And so basically they're treated like a mobility device. And so you can turn in any vet bills or anything like that through dog of record, and they take care of those things.
Okay, fantastic.
But the dog food is something that, I mean, I'm more than happy to feed my dog. If if you can't afford to do that, maybe, that's something that needs to be handled, before you try to add, a dog into your family life.
They're asking, Candace is asking, is there a protocol in place to check that the dog is being well cared for once it's placed with its veteran? So we call that aftercare, and we do periodically check in with our veterans. And, occasionally there's additional training that's even needed.
Yeah.
So,
and sometimes people are in a different place and they need more. And sometimes people lose mobility. I got hurt one time, and both me and Benji put on a little weight, and they told me, Joe, better watch that dog, or we're gonna put him in fat camp. And they actually have a program that they use to help the dog lose weight, because it happens. Sometimes people are not able to get around like they were, but they don't shift the food needs of the dog. And we get it. But that's why we have that, yearly check-in. There's even recertification to make sure that the dog training is kept up. And I think that's one thing that sets us apart from other organizations. I mean, I think we've all seen service dogs totally misbehaving that make you wonder if they're actually service dogs. Benji and Galaxy both have had dogs lunge at them that were supposed to be service dogs. And
wow.
That's just wild. Both Benji and Galaxy don't have an aggressive bone in their body. They're like, whoa, hey man, what's going on with that? They're like hippies. I love it. I don't have to ever worry about that. That would be a stressful thing to have to deal with.
Joe, you're pretty funny on a Friday, 4 o'clock-ish. Yeah.
Well, I'm getting close to dinner. I get happy when food's close.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So, I guess, Joe, what I want to ask is, if somebody, was considering to maybe apply for a service dog, what would you say to them?
I would say absolutely put an application in right now. And the reason why is because of COVID and things like that. Everybody kind of got behind. We're trying to help people as fast as we can, but you can back out of the program at any point if it's not right for you. We've had people show up to class and say it wasn't right for them. And I mean, that's rare, but you have that right. Nobody's going to ever make you feel guilty. And we never ask our veterans to do anything they don't want to do. They've never forced me to talk to anybody. I do this because I love the program. And so, I'm absolutely super happy to be a part of this and to be able to talk to you guys. Like I said, to take something wild that's happened in my life and make it useful.
So the National Society of the Colonial Dames of America, they want to know like how they can help. And, we always say there's a huge need for volunteers. Puppy raising, is the biggest need. Again, as of now, you do have to live in specific parts of the country to take on such a responsibility. It's more East Coast at this time. We do have a big presence, by the way, in Georgia, because
Yes,
we have
huge.
students at University of Georgia and University of Maryland too, that are taking on top of their heavy school workload. They're taking
we had a whole
on
sorority just basically adopt us. And
Yes.
so it's one of their things their sorority does. I mean, I saw 4 or 5 of our dogs walking around when I went down there one time.
But on the flip side, people who are recently retired and want to get involved, with our organization, that's another, maybe an opportunity to take on this responsibility, which it is a huge responsibility. It's 24/7 from 8 weeks to maybe, 14, 15 months of age. But it is a real rewarding experience. If you have your dog doing something that's going to really benefit somebody else, it's just extremely rewarding. And Tom, somebody had asked earlier, they wanted to know, like, how much time do you expect to have Shay with you?
I may be one of the extreme cases, but I have him with me 24/7. He lives in the house with us, with the family, and he comes to work with me. We go grocery shopping. Heck, he even came to the Navy Yard with me today to get a haircut, and he basically just laid there and watched it all happen, and he was probably glad it wasn't him. But
do you have any indication when they're going to ask him to come back to New York?
So with PTSD dogs, I believe it's a pretty rigorous schedule as to what the callback is going to be, and it's IFT is what we call it, in for training. And so his callback is going to be end of January into February is when his transport from the DC area is going to be to head back up to New York.
Fantastic. Well, I'm so glad, Tom and Joe, that we were invited to take part in this opportunity today. I'm not going to share my PowerPoint because at this point, it's just to say, if you have any questions, we encourage you all to visit vetdogs.org. As Samantha has written, you can absolutely contact Melinda Willingham, and she can, give you some information as to how to get involved with America's Vet Dogs. You can also contact me directly. That's fine too. I'm Jamie at vetdogs.org, and I spell it Jaime at vetdogs.org.
Yeah, and we just hired another Jamie, so be careful how you spell it. You might get the wrong one.
This is true. This is very true. But again, we are just so excited that we have Dame in the works. Dame is learning to become a service dog and excited to share future updates with you and really, continue our partnership together. So thank you so much for having us today, and have a great afternoon and evening.
I'd like to say one thing. I'd like to apologize for my inability to grow an amazing mustache like Tom. I think I've got just enough Cherokee, and it's just right here on the front of my face. I can't do it. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, thank you, Joe, for that.
Thank you.